There was nothing dramatic about it. No big mistake, no major turning point, just small decisions pushed to later. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll think about it. There's still time. It felt harmless, normal, even responsible, until one day he looked back and realized something uncomfortable. It wasn't one big choice that shaped his life. It was all the small ones he never made, and in that moment, he understood something he had missed for years. Delay is still a decision. Most people believe their lives are shaped by major decisions. The job they accepted, the city they moved to, the person they married, the business they started, the retirement they planned. These moments certainly matter. But after more than 30 years caring for older adults, I've noticed something surprising. When people look back on their lives, they rarely regret a single dramatic decision. More often, they regret something quieter, something smaller, something they kept postponing. The man in this story never considered himself indecisive. In fact, he thought he was being careful, thoughtful, responsible. Whenever a decision appeared, he wanted more information, a little more time, a little more certainty, a little more preparation. At first, this seemed reasonable. After all, nobody wants to make the wrong choice. But slowly, a habit began developing. Not the habit of making bad decisions, the habit of delaying decisions. One morning, he woke before sunrise. The bedroom was still dark. His head rested against the pillow while faint morning light waited behind the curtains. As he stared at the ceiling, his thoughts drifted toward several things he had been postponing. A phone call he needed to make, a health appointment he kept delaying, a project he wanted to begin, a conversation he knew he should have. None of them felt urgent. None of them seemed critical. And that was precisely the problem. The most dangerous delays are rarely attached to emergencies. They attach themselves to important things that appear capable of waiting. The man had always assumed there would be more time. Tomorrow, next week, next month, soon. That word became surprisingly familiar. Soon. Yet many of the things he planned to do soon quietly remained undone. Not because they were impossible, because there was never enough pressure to act today. As sunlight finally entered through the curtains and illuminated the room, he realized something uncomfortable. Life is rarely shaped by one enormous decision. It is shaped by hundreds of small ones. The decision to begin, the decision to call, the decision to learn, the decision to move, the decision to stop waiting. Each choice seems insignificant in isolation, but together they create direction, and direction, repeated long enough, becomes destiny. The man did not know it yet, but many of the outcomes he blamed on circumstance were actually connected to decisions he never made, and that realization would change the way he viewed delay forever. The realization stayed with the man longer than he expected. At first, he dismissed it. Everyone delays things occasionally. Everyone puts something off until tomorrow. That seemed normal, reasonable even. But once he started paying attention, he noticed a pattern that had been quietly shaping his life for years. The delays were rarely connected to laziness. They were connected to comfort, a difficult conversation, a medical checkup, a financial decision, a new habit, a skill he wanted to learn. None of these tasks felt urgent in the moment, and because they didn't demand immediate action, they were pushed aside. One afternoon, while sitting alone in his living room, he found himself reflecting on opportunities that had passed. Not dramatic opportunities, ordinary ones. The kind that arrive quietly and leave quietly. A hobby he always wanted to pursue. Friendships he intended to reconnect with. Health habits he planned to start. Projects he kept telling himself he would begin someday. Thinking back, he realized something important. There had never been a single moment when he consciously decided not to do those things. Instead, he had made hundreds of tiny decisions to wait. And eventually, waiting became a direction. That realization felt uncomfortable because it removed one of his favorite explanations. The belief that circumstances alone had shaped the outcome. Certainly, circumstances matter. Life presents obstacles. Unexpected events occur. But many unfinished chapters in his life were not caused by obstacles. They were caused by postponement. One morning during a walking routine, he decided to experiment. Instead of delaying a small task, he acted immediately. A simple phone call. Nothing dramatic. Just something he had been postponing for weeks. The action took less than 10 minutes, yet the feeling afterward surprised him. Relief, momentum, progress. The task itself had never been the burden. The delay had been. This became an important lesson. Many decisions grow heavier while waiting. The longer they remain unresolved, the larger they appear in the mind. The brain begins imagining complexity where little exists. And before long, a simple action feels overwhelming. The man started wondering how many other areas of life worked the same way. How many opportunities had been lost, not because he chose against them, but because he never chose at all. The danger of delay is that it rarely feels dangerous. That is why it becomes so powerful. When people make an obviously harmful decision, the risk is visible. The consequences can often be anticipated. But postponement hides its consequences, at least at first. One day becomes two. Two becomes a week. A week becomes a year. And because nothing dramatic happens immediately, the delay feels harmless. The man began noticing this pattern everywhere. A person delays exercise because today feels busy. A person postpones a health screening because they feel fine. A person waits to reconnect with someone because there will be another opportunity later. Each decision appears insignificant, yet together they slowly shape a different future. After more than 30 years caring for older adults, I've heard many reflections about regret. Interestingly, most regrets are not about things people did. They are about things they intended to do. The trip they postponed, the conversation they delayed, the dream they never pursued, the habit they always planned to start. These regrets rarely emerge from one large mistake. They emerge from years of small postponements. One evening, the man sat quietly in a dark bedroom. The night outside was calm, the house silent. As he rested against the pillow, he reflected on how often delay had disguised itself as patience, how often waiting had disguised itself as preparation, how often hesitation had disguised itself as responsibility. The brain is remarkably skilled at creating reasonable explanations, especially when avoiding discomfort. But eventually, he saw the pattern clearly. Delay is not passive. It feels passive, but it is actively shaping outcomes. Every postponed action influences direction. Every avoided decision narrows possibilities. Every delay quietly casts a vote for the future that eventually arrives. And whether we notice it or not, life continues moving forward. Time never waits for certainty. Once the man understood this, he stopped searching for dramatic solutions. He didn't create an elaborate system. He didn't redesign his entire life. Instead, he focused on one simple principle: make small decisions sooner. At first, this felt almost insignificant. Respond to the message, schedule the appointment, begin the project, take the walk, open the document, make the call. Small actions, small choices, small moments. Yet something interesting happened. Momentum began replacing stagnation. One morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains as he prepared for the day. Normally, several small tasks would remain on his mental list for weeks. Now he addressed them quickly, not perfectly, not immediately, every time, but more consistently. The result was noticeable. His mind felt lighter. His attention felt clearer. The constant background noise created by unfinished decisions began fading. This is something many people underestimate. Delayed decisions consume energy. Even when no action is being taken, the brain continues tracking unresolved issues, continues revisiting them, continues carrying them. By making decisions sooner, the man wasn't merely becoming productive. He was creating mental space. His daily walking routine became another reminder. Every step represented movement, not perfection, movement. And life often responds to movement more than certainty. Progress rarely requires having all the answers. It simply requires taking the next reasonable step. The man discovered that confidence works the same way. Confidence does not appear before action. It often appears after action, after evidence, after movement, after deciding, and with every small decision made promptly, his trust in himself grew a little stronger. Not because life became easier, because he was no longer standing still. Life is not shaped only by the choices we make. It is also shaped by the choices we postpone. That was the lesson the man carried forward. For years, he believed waiting was neutral, that delaying a decision simply meant deciding later. Now he understood something different. Delay creates its own outcome. Time continues moving. Opportunities continue changing. Circumstances continue evolving, whether we act or not. One quiet evening, he stood beside a bedroom window. The night sky was dark, the room peaceful. A gentle sense of reflection settled over him. Thinking about the past, he could see countless moments when action would have required only a few minutes. A phone call, a conversation, a commitment, a first step. Yet those moments had often expanded into months or years, because he kept waiting for the perfect time, the perfect mood, the perfect level of certainty. Eventually, he learned something liberating. Perfect conditions rarely arrive. Life unfolds in imperfect circumstances. And meaningful progress usually belongs to people willing to act before everything feels ready. After more than 30 years caring for older adults, I believe this is one of the most valuable lessons we can learn. Most lives are not transformed by one enormous decision. They are shaped by small decisions repeated over time. The decision to begin, the decision to respond, the decision to move forward, the decision to stop postponing what matters. Because in the end, inaction is not the absence of choice. It is a choice. Waiting is not the absence of direction. It is a direction. And sometimes, the most powerful change a person can make is surprisingly simple. Not a dramatic transformation. Not a life-altering breakthrough. Just this. Stop waiting. Take the next step and allow today's small decision to become tomorrow's progress.